let me introduce it again. Um, you've told me that you recently come by a couple extra insights on writer's block and how to deal with it, and I was wondering if you could talk about that.
Yeah, so really thank you for the question. Really fantastic question. Actually, it had me look in my life and some of my own experiences in terms of creativity and what I realize is so I've had this experience actually. It was not so much a writer's block, but more a block to be inspired by life and move my life forward in an exciting way. And so you could say that writing happens in an intuitive space, like it is a space of creativity, like you have a sense of yourself, like a sense of something being possible that is unique to you, that is where you have been dwelling and you've had great results and something came out of it and it's just amazing and you're just very excited about it and it's something that you recognize yourself. It's kind of like a sacred space. Now what might happen, I'm not saying that this is particular to any writer's block or that this is what defines a writer's block, but one of the experiences that a person might have had, and then in that case, I've got something to say about that, to speak to that, is that so acknowledging this space, this intuitive, exciting space of that you are aware of, that is available to you, if something has happened, like someone might have said something to you regarding your capacity to write, or let's say something might have happened, you went to a publisher or you shared it with a loved one, something that was so intimate and dear to you, and you experienced, let's say, a negative response, or it was not a response that you were looking for. What might happen, and this is a pure dynamic of the mind, and that is what we're talking about here. What might happen is that then the next time you are with yourself and you kind of want to tap into that space, this intuitive space that you know so well, that a thought might creep up that is in association with either what happened or what someone had said to you, that creeps up the moment that you are intending to tune in into that space. When that thought is, well, let's call it intrusive enough that it displaces your attention, or you start engaging with that thought, then you are no longer in that space, that intuitive space of possibility of your creative expression. Then what happens when you are distracted is that there is the awareness that you are no longer, that space, that intuitive space is no longer available to you. Because when you are returning to that sacred space, there is that thought. There is the dynamic of the mind unleashing on you. That awareness that you are no longer, that space is no longer available to you, creates a future. The mind creates a future that something then is no longer possible, no longer available to you, which is this the future of you bringing expression to that. And then in that experience that something is no longer, that is very dear to you, is no longer available to you, then opens up like an escalating nature of the thinking that then so many other futures are then no longer available to you, like in practicality the future of financial independence, or what you were building in terms of a brand or something like that. So you suddenly find yourself entrapped in a dynamic of the thinking that when you want to return to that sacred space of expression that you are so familiar with, that calls up this dynamic of the thinking, that it is no longer available to you, and then therefore certain futures are not available to you. That dynamic is what then starts to shape the experience of your life. So then each time you want to tune into that space, what's there rather than you being in that space, there is this dynamic of the thinking that tells you that something is not possible. And not only that, that then therefore so many other things are not possible. That could be an example of a writer's block, and you have no idea how to get out of that. What happens is you feel desperate, there is anger, there is like a whole range of emotions that come with that you feel stopped in your creative expression, and you don't know how to get out of that. And there is also the realization that the more you try to get out of it, the more you get into it, so to speak. So that is a true writer's block. That is where you are entrapped in the thinking.
A block for writers. It's a block for anybody that's creating something, an entrepreneur, a speaker, an artist, almost anything where you're trying to create something. That if you get that little bit of doubt in your mind from somebody else, it can create a huge block if you allow it to run.
Yes, yes, because what comes with it simultaneously, and it happens all very, very fast, is the immediate awareness I'm no longer in that space. Then there is the idea of a loss, what that could mean, where then the mind creates a future, that something is not available. And so, obviously, the way out is not trying to get out of it because that is what gets you more into it. The part of the trap is trying to get out of the trap. The only way to see through this is by realizing that you were never entrapped and that it is still there for you and available for you. So, how to go about that is to do the most unlikely thing, and it is to allow for the totality of that experience, even if the thinking tells you now you will never be able to write because you can't access that space. That is the one thing you do not want to have happen, let alone experience in its totality, because the same mind that gave you that experience in the first place tells you if you experience that in the full, it will actually happen. And that is where the lie is. So you demonstrate to yourself that it was just a thought in the first place by having the courage, the most unlikely courage, to allow for that experience. What then happens is you return to a place, it's like poof, it just dissipates. It no longer has a hold on you because you took away what had you grounded reality. So by allowing for it, you deny it reality. You put it back in its place. It was just a thought, nothing else. And then naturally, you return to a place of just being yourself, of just where anything is possible. And if you want to go back to this intuitive space of creativity, whether it is for writing, whether it is for designing, whether it is for public speaking, then that is available. And maybe that thought may still come up, or it may just completely have dissolved itself. But that is the way. The way through it is by having the full experience of it.
And that's true for any kind of procrastination because all procrastination is essentially a form of writer's block in the sense that you're inhibited because the spirit of what you had before that was strong, but then it got misdirected, thinking started to happen and more thinking started to happen, and suddenly you were fighting something that had nothing to do with the original creative impulse.
Yeah, yeah, yes, yeah. So that's a clear example how the mind tricks you and how it can can sabotage you while it's not necessary. That is to say, it if you don't know that you don't know the nature of what the mind creates in your consciousness, then it is easy to get stuck into it because you take it for reality. And the only way that you can demonstrate to yourself that it is not reality is to do the most counterintuitive thing, which is to allow for it. So you can only see the truth through your own experience. And this is what it takes.
Thank you.
No, thank you for your question. It's good. Phenomenal.